Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Gyanamurtim Dandvaititam Gaganasadrisham Tattvamap Shadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tannamami. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We salute the leader of our souls, through whose grace our ignorance is dispelled, who is beyond good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death, and all other pairs of opposites. We recognize that one as the only witness to the changing phenomena of this universe. May we, through that grace, go beyond darkness and delusion and realize the truth in this very life. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Yam Brahma Varnendra Rudra Marutaha Stanvanti Daboy Vedai Sangapada Kramo Panashadoi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyana Vashtita Tadgutena Manasha Pashanti Yam Yogino Yashantum Naviduhu Sura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Our eternal salutations to that one who is the truth of life and existence, and whom the saints and sages call by different names. Our eternal salutations to that one whose glories are sung in the various hymns of the different religious scriptures of the world, but whose infinite and undying grandeur no mortal mind can comprehend. Our eternal salutations to that one upon whom the devotees meditate in the shrine of their hearts, realizing an ineffable presence in their deepest contemplation. May he prompt our minds toward the path of truth and righteousness. May she reveal herself into our souls and dispel the gloom of death, fear, doubt, and darkness. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Saviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu, Ma Vidvishovahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May Brahman protect us, may Brahman sustain us, may Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings, and may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. So welcome today to our class on Advaita Vedanta. We have our penultimate class today and then our final class here in Hawaii next Sunday, both live streamed, so we welcome our live stream audience and all of you who came here to this location in Hawaii near the ocean, symbolizing the ocean of Brahman or the ocean of suffering, depending on where the soul chooses to be. In Advaita Vedanta, of course, all is Brahman. And in that very profound and pregnant saying is contained all of the wisdom of Vedanta, much of which we will go through today and in this series of classes. Advaita is an interesting word. It'd be hard to describe it or define it as oneness. Some people have said not two-ness might be better, because if you restrict it to oneness, then it limits it, and there's no limit to this limitless Brahman. Brahman is the word we use in Vedanta to signify absolute reality, which is nameless, formless, timeless, deathless, and causeless. That is nama, rupa, desha, kala, and nimitta. Those 5 Sanskrit words, meaning name and form and time and space and causality, or karma if you wish, do not affect it. Just like good and bad smells pass on the air, but the air just carries them. In that same way, virtue and vice and pleasure and pain and life and death and all other dualities, as we just chanted, do not stain that stainless Brahman. It remains ever pure and ever free. And it's the subject of Vedanta, number 1 subject. Maybe the only subject if you reach an enlightened state, but until you have reached that enlightened state, that is, until you've realized that your soul is pure and perfect, but your mind still needs work on realizing that, then you must pass through these phases of suffering and struggle and spiritual practice. Basically, one moves from lower truth to higher truth. That's what our great saying illustrates. Asato ma sadgamoya tamaso ma joytirgamoya mrityur ma amritam gamaya. May we be led from lower truth to higher truth. May we be led from the unreal to the real. May we be led from the illusion of death to eternal life. So with these sentiments, we begin our Vedantic teachings every day. We look into them through the scriptures. And as we've said before, we must be sure that they're the revealed scriptures, because there are secondary scriptures and there are scriptures which are fundamentalist. If you go to the revealed scriptures, you do have that one relationship to talk about, the apparently individualized soul. Notice the care with which we define it, the apparently individualized soul, because it's a line of demarcation between creature and creator, and God and mankind is just that. It's an apparent line. It's not a real line. Mankind is God, walking around on 2 legs, if you want to quote Swami Vivekananda anyway. So the relationship between the apparently individualized soul and the supreme soul, the Atman and the Paramatman, 2 other words in which we use in the Vedanta to illustrate. In fact, I got a good question from an email yesterday about why do we use so many words for reality in Vedanta? There's Brahman, and there's Atman, and there's Paramatman, and so forth. So I had to carefully explain, and it also happened at Satsang last Tuesday, which was also live streamed to all of our audience looking in from India and from other places, that Brahman is that boundless ocean of reality which we just defined as well as words can say. But Atman has this penchant towards covering itself with 5 layers: body, energy, mind, thought, intelligence, if you will, and ego. This, again, apparent sense of separation between God and mankind. It's called false superimposition in Vedanta, or vivarta. They have words in Vedantic circles and in Indian philosophy that very carefully specify those anomalies that are taking place in relativity and in the human mind, which causes confusion, and confusion then leading to suffering, and suffering again leading to karma, and karma making huge impressions on our mind, called samskaras, indentions or impressions in our mind stuff. Mind stuff means chitta, the thought. And so when a person is moving past the body into death, and then taking the mind with it into death, and these samskaras are going to dictate its return. So we want to make sure that these impressions, if they are run into the mind stuff, are impressions of consciousness, of awareness, of sensitivity, of mindfulness, other words that people have been using today to describe a pure mind. And last week we looked into that in terms of the Gyanamatra. Basically, we looked at the Guru Bhakti portion of the Gyanamatra. Gyanamatra, again, for those of you who are joining us new, is this intelligent particle. And it's a way of explaining, both in terms of theology and in science and in religion and philosophy. Everyone's thinking in terms of particles these days, even the quantum physicists and so forth. So we want to make a point for the fact that there are other particles than atomic. In fact, if you use that word in Vedanta, Atman, then why not say atmic particle? There's the atomic particle, there's also the atmic particle, if one could be so bold as to use that. So the atmic particle is a particle of pure intelligence. It's sentient, whereas the physical particle is not sentient, it's insentient. And of course, we've been making the connection that from the infinite, the finite has come. Purnamadaha Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamudachyate. So from the infinite being, this infinite consciousness, comes this finite world of names and forms in time and space based on causation. Nama, Rupa, Desha, Kala, Nimitta. So there's a secondary subject for the aspiring mind to encounter, is to look into those five, that quintuplication, because quintuplications are very important. That is, sets of fives. There are 5 elements. That is, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and they connect with the 5 senses. Earth connects with smell, and water connects with taste, and fire connects with sight, obviously, and air connects with touch, and ether connects with hearing. So there's another set of 5s, your 5 senses. So we connect these 2 quintuplications that have happened in nature. Sets of 5 have rolled out of the intelligent particle, is what I'm saying, and manifested. It's really nothing but the manifestation of Brahman, but the ignorant human mind is looking at it and calling it an individual reality, a separate reality from Brahman. So the whole problem of false superimposition in Vedanta, or Vivarta as I just called it, is this limited human mind taking all that is Brahman and rendering it into finite principles, and then believing in the finite principles and thereby suffering the act of its own separation from God. You separate nature from spirit, you separate man, creature from creator, you separate God from mankind. So yoga is non-separation. Love of God is non-separation, ananya bhakti. So yoga comes forth at that time in human history to make these connections for us, or to reconnect us. Everyone's talking about reconnecting with this and reconnecting with that. But really, all connections are made when you reconnect with your true self, Atman, or Brahman. That reconnection process is called sadhana. You have to do a certain kind of practice, and when that sadhana reaches fruition, it's called enlightenment. And when enlightenment dawns, then it's Vedanta Siddhanta Nirukti Resha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagadcha. Basically means it is the final conclusion of Vedanta that all this is Brahman, all this is reality. Time, space, living beings, the world, Jagat, and Jiva, the individualized embodied soul, all this is Brahman. And if you live in constant recognition of that fact, then it's called enlightenment. So, finding out all this is Brahman, and then retaining that fact in your mind. Now, if you can't retain that fact in your mind, then you're given a mantra. And you say Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, or whatever. Or you could even sing it if you want. You could say Sambhavanti Samba Sada Shiva, Samba Sada Shiva, Samba Sada Shiva, Samba Shiva. Samba Sada Shiva, Samba Sada Shiva, Samba Sada Shiva, Samba Shiva. Samba Sada Shiva, Samba Sada Shiva, Samba Sada Shiva, Samba Shiva. Whatever it takes to liven it up, to make it live in this dead and sentient world that human beings have created, in this mundane, human, conventional atmosphere that we've created, you take the trouble to do that. That's called sadhana, is bringing the intelligent particle back into life, if you want to put it that way. What to speak of an intelligent particle? There are streams of intelligent particles. This is what we call light. If you were to look at light, then you can see physical light even. You can see particles in the air through the light. You can see rays coming off a sun through the clouds. It's no different than going deeper into your consciousness and seeing rays of wisdom shine out from your Atman, from your true self. When people say, I've seen the light, I've seen the light, they don't mean the light of this world. That's just a physical light. And there are billions of suns in the night sky, but it doesn't change the fact that there's still a physical light there. But what underlies those billions of suns are billions of particles of conscious light, chaitanya, consciousness, pure conscious awareness. And the seer, or the sage, or the saint, or the savior, or any other nice S word you can think of that goes with that, have seen that light, and they live in that light. That light is manifesting through them, and its basic manifestation is intelligence. So last week then we looked at the intelligent particle in terms of pure mind. As Buddha said, Buddha mind, pure mind is Buddha mind. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, pure mind is God, pure mind is Brahman. So if the mind is purified of its dross, things like lust, anger, greed, envy, jealousy, pride, delusion, grief, fear, pride of caste, pride of lineage, basically called the 6 fetters, 6 passions and the 8 fetters, and removes those overlays, those false superimpositions of avidya, ragadvesha, and abhinivesha and so forth, that is the 5 impediments or kleshas to yoga: ignorance, attachment, aversion, clinging to life, egotism, asmita. If you remove those superimpositions, then you find this pure mind. This pure mind is the third eye, is the thine eye be single, thou shalt know the truth. So learning to look at everything through that single eye of wisdom, both Christ and Krishna talked about it. Krishna called it the jnana chakshu, the eye of wisdom. So what you're seeing when you see the world of name and form and time and space based on causation, if you're looking through the single eye, is nothing else than Brahman. But if you're not aware of Brahman, and if you haven't done the requisite practices to remove the dross from your mind, then you're just seeing a world of name and form and time and space based on cause and effect. And this is called an ocean of samsara. But an ocean of consciousness, or an ocean of ananda, bliss, that's something far different. One immerses oneself in that, and one reaches the goal of human existence in that very lifetime. So let's all reach the goal of human existence in this lifetime. That's what my teacher used to say. So there are many ways to do this. One of the ways in which it's explained is through this power of intelligence in you. We called it pratyabhigya. There was this one of these pratibha here, intuitive intelligence. If a person begins to get an inkling that there's a ruse been pulled, that there's a wool been pulled over the eyes, that all of the exterior world of name and form is covering something, then one all of a sudden becomes the Sherlock Holmes of the spiritual world. Wants to begin to uncover clues in the exterior manifestation that point directly towards Brahman. So light, or the light of intelligence, is one of the clues, one of the great keys that helps you unwrap that. So in my thought process, in my meditation, in my studies, in the teachings I took from my teachers, in the various scriptures I studied, I came to a sort of understanding of what an intelligent particle might consist of. So over the last 4 weeks of these live-streamed classes, we've been talking about Smriti Bedu, causal memory, a memory inside of us that is not just natal, not just instinctive, not even prenatal. It has nothing to do with birth at all. It has to do with your birthless, deathless nature. Forget nature and instinct and heredity and DNA and all of that. That's an exterior manifestation of something much more pure and powerful called consciousness, or supreme intelligence, or truth, or bliss, or Brahman, or Atman, or Nirvana, or Samadhi, or Satori, or Kaivalya. That causal memory then is to be uncovered. If it's uncovered, one remembers one's past lifetimes. Krishna talks about that in the Gita. I've lived many lifetimes, Arjuna, so have you, but I know all mine. You have not uncovered yours yet. So there must be a soul here, and many souls probably, who are living again and again and again and again and never remembering who they were or who they are. It's probably more to the point. But even the personality that they were in the past. Yet it's written all over them, on their features. How close or far apart their eyes are, how big their nose is or how small, what their ears are shaped like, if their chin is cleft or prominent or withdrawn, what the cranial vault looks like, the way one walks, the way one speaks, the way one acts. All of this is your past lifetimes written on your present body. Look in the mirror and check it out, as they say. Used to be a meditation when I was in the 60s, is you just looked in the mirror into your own eyes, and that was a meditation you did that day. You can see everything imprinted there. And like I said, it goes far beyond DNA and heredity and physiognomy and so forth. It's a kind of spiritual physiognomy. You can tell where you've been by looking in the cracks of your consciousness. And so the great scriptures of India say when you uncover this series of past lifetimes, then you have the key to your birthless, deathless nature. There must have been a witness that was looking on when all of those births and deaths took place, and I remember it. And that I that remembers it is the true me. It's the I am, or I am that, or thou art that, tat tvamasi. So that witness consciousness is another part of this intelligent cell, Sakshi Chaitanya, witness consciousness. So through the memory of your causal body, that is when you were still in a disembodied state, or when you go into a disembodied state, through that memory can be traced a witness consciousness that exists in you, that knows everything. All the kingdoms of heaven are within you. That's the witness consciousness which tells you that. My Father's mansion has many chambers. It's the witness consciousness that's telling you that. I and my Father are one. It's the witness consciousness that's telling you that. So first you have to trace the memory of it. You have to recall. And that happens through a combination of your intuitive intelligence and your causal memory. So those were two very strong facets of the whole cell. And this is just one cell in a stream of cells that are flowing through you, through your mind. and also which are making up all these objects here. They're all made of intelligence. You can put it that way. Everything is a manifestation from your own mind. God had nothing to do with it. Brahman is formless, so don't bring him into the realm of name and form. Brahman is a substratum only. That's why Vivekananda said, God is not in the world. The world is in God. So you have to take a different perspective, turn your mind around and look at all of this as existing in Brahman. But Brahman is not in it. Have you seen pure consciousness anywhere in the realm of name and form? Name and form covers pure consciousness. That's the nature of the thing. Basically, if you have a nice pool and there's a green scum over it, and you remove this green scum with your hands, and you can see yourself, but the green scum comes dancing back and impedes your vision of who you are. So this green scum called Maya, or false superimposition, or Vivarta, or Adhyasa, false reflection, ignorance, covers the true nature of Brahman, which is formless. That's why you can never bring God into the world, because God is not a form. We've been trying to objectify God from time out of mind, and we've never succeeded. And in our attempt, we've been throwing up all these queer creatures of our fancy. Angels, children, buildings, lands, atmospheres. Trying to objectify the formless Brahman. Can't be done. Give it up. Just go there by shedding form yourself and prove to yourself that you're a formless being. If there's any nobility of all in coming into form, the real nobility is to giving up form, not having anything to do with matter, because matter is insentient, because matter goes through the 6 transformations: birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death. Who wants those? But if you take form, then you're going to take those 6 transformations as a matter of course. There's no way out of it. Birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death will follow you into form. So this is the reason why this is not just a philosophical teaching, it's your route to freedom. I said basically earlier there are many paths to get to the goal, but when you reach the top of the mountain, there's only one path, and that's giving up form, giving up nature, giving up which is insentient, and which has been impeding the vision of your true self for many lifetimes. So your causal memory, you can look back and see all the many lifetimes you took when you tried to objectify your true nature, turn it into an object, into a body, into a brain, into a system, into a world, into an akasha, into a loka, into a realm, into a heaven, into a earth, into a hell. The mind has been busy. Not just your mind, but billions of minds. 7 billion here and an infinite amount in the ancestor realm. They're still all busy minds trying to objectify the non-objectifiable Brahman. The nameless, formless, timeless, deathless reality. So that's where we talked about the dissolving power. See? Arupa manonasha. How to dissolve nasha, anasha, or nashi. How to dissolve the mano, mind. Dissolve the mind stream, because it's flowing outward through the senses. So there's really not that much difference between going to sleep and meditating. Ideally, in meditation, you'll go to sleep and keep your consciousness with you, but in sleep, you'll go to sleep and forget your consciousness and dream and go into deep sleep. And in deep sleep, you'll have concourse with your formless nature as light, as intelligence. You'll see it, you'll feel it. That's why you wake up after 20 minutes of deep sleep and you feel refreshed. It's called an afternoon nap. If you can skip the dreaming and just go straight into deep sleep, then you have all the reflection you need for your day. So you also turn off the senses in meditation. Or ideally, you also turn off the senses at death, and you also turn off the senses when you go into samadhi. So have samadhi. Who said that? Shankara, the great Advaita, 700 AD. Have samadhi, he said. It's your true nature. He's giving you permission to have the highest state of consciousness, which is already your own. It isn't like, oh, samadhi is something far off in the future, like I get it after a post-mortem emancipation. No. It's here and now. It's your true nature. Form can't distort it. Name and form can't cover it. It's free of time and space and causation. It's in an eternal moment, and that eternal moment is in you. So there's going to have to be some dissolution going on. So this mano nasha, you're dissolving form, rupa. So you want to get to arupa. Nama rupa is name and form. So anama arupa is nameless, formless. So try thinking of yourself as a voice without a name, without a form, without a name. Try thinking of yourself as a pure consciousness. Go into meditation in that mode. Not in the mode where I'm trying to attain something, or in the mode where I'm sinful or I'm imperfect. Go looking for the jewel of great price, the pearl of great price. Go look for that. It's within you. So there's going to have to be some powers to take into consideration. Those powers are in you. The power to dissolve worlds of name and form and time and space, and to destroy karma. Right now, there are thousands of people who are saying, I can't get to enlightenment because of all my karmas. But Vivekananda said, blast your karmas. Blow them out of the water. So destroy them with the particles, the intelligent stream of your own particles. With higher sense, with higher intelligence, look at yourself. Look deep into yourself. And simply dissolve everything that's in the way of the vision of the light. Don't be afraid. It's your true nature. Sri Ramakrishna once said to Swami Vivekananda, if you saw this bowl of nectar and you were a fly, what would you do? He said, I'd perch on the edge of the bowl and crane my neck over and sip the nectar, but be careful not to fall in, so I wouldn't die. And Sri Ramakrishna said, no, that nectar, that ocean of nectar is your true nature. The fly is your body-mind mechanism. If you fall in, you'll destroy the body-mind mechanism, but you'll realize your true nature, which is not finite, it's infinite. It's not imperfect, it's perfect. It's not sinful, it's divine. And it can never be made any other than divine. That's its nature. You can't change a thing's nature. So the true nature of mankind is divine. That's Vedanta's conclusion. And these are looking into windows of a very powerful force called Shakti, which will help you dissolve all the impediments and obstacles in the way of your spiritual path. Yeah, you can pray to Ganesha. See, Om Ganeshaya Namaha. May you remove all the obstacles on our path. Everyone likes Ganesha. But like I say, you could probably pray and pray and pray, but that's the long, slow boat to China. What you want is self-effort. You're asking for grace when you pray, right? The grace comes to you in the form of self-effort. Self-effort and grace are hand in hand. Leave the praying to beings who are much better at it. You can pray till you're blue in the face, and that's what happened to Vishnu. Prayed till he was blue in the face. For the good of all sentient beings for their highest good. So these facets of the intelligent particle we've been looking at for 4 weeks: witness consciousness, dissolving power, primal intelligence, causal memory, and we looked at Guru Bhakti last week, devotion, in terms of doing the 3 levels, attaining the 3 levels of bhakti, the 3 levels of worship. And we also looked at the 4 qualities of a true teacher. And those are all facets of the intelligent particle too. That is, intelligence and devotion can never be divorced. They always have to be connected. So as I was saying about the quintuplication process, connect your 5 senses to the 5 elements. But remember, you have 5 senses and 5 elements in dreams tonight too, in your dream state. You see in a dream, you hear in a dream, you touch in a dream, and feel in a dream, taste in a dream. And you also create lands and worlds out of 5 dream elements tonight when you sleep. And you destroy them too. Like a kid making a sandcastle on the sand, waiting for the ocean to come and destroy it. You construct and you destroy all the time. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are in you. You're not in them, they're in you. Those are the powers of projection, sustenance, and withdrawal. Or sometimes they call it creation, preservation, and destruction. So that's a lot of dissolving power, isn't it? To be able to create worlds of name and form in time and space, and destroy them too. Every 24 hours. So it's a mind game. It's a mind game of all mind games. Now, we talked about, in this sort of review that we're doing right now, the cell wall. It's got retentive memory, it's got the force of intelligence in it, it's got projecting power, and it's got pervading quality. Those are 4 things to think about. There are Sanskrit equivalents there for those words if you want. Smriti, Chit Shakti, Sankalpa Matra, and Vyapak Atma. Basically, if you memorize those, then you'll know that this force of intelligence within you has these powers. It projects, it also pervades. It's got inherent intelligence in it. And we talked about that in terms of self-settling wisdom, samanya vijnana, self-settling wisdom. It doesn't need to go anywhere, yet it can become manifold if it wants and spread itself. Interesting fact about the word Brahman. They said it comes from the Sanskrit word bri, which means to expand. So the power of Brahman to expand infinitely is inferred by that word Brahman. And so we're talking about something infinite, something eternal. But if you look at the inner dynamics of that eternal, infinite something, you'd find that the dynamics in it are Shakti. And that's the force of this intelligent particle that is projected out. So it's got this projecting power to create worlds of name and form in time and space. Once it projects them, then it settles into them and it knows itself as formless, even when the form appears on the surface. And it knows itself as all-pervasive too. That's a very good word in Sanskrit and in English, both. It's all-pervasive. That means it doesn't need to go anywhere to find itself. It's already interpenetrating everything. All-pervasive. If you understood that about your own intelligence, then you would not worry anymore about taking on bodies or giving up bodies, or going to the ancestors, or going to the gods and goddesses, or going to some other realm, because you're always there, everywhere you look, everywhere you go. Brahman is everywhere. That's why that beautiful song, Jo kucha hai so tu hi hai tujhse humne dil ko lagaya dil ko lagaya. I've finally realized, O Lord, that everything is you. You are in everything. Nothing exists but thee. So, this realization of the all-pervasiveness of everything is a matter of course for one who realizes their intelligent particle. Now, I said the word was Shakti. And last week we looked at Shakti in terms of that dynamic power of the word. We talked about Om. And in fact, where we left off was with that chart on Om. If you remember, Om and Hrim, the two great bijams. And we were looking at not only quintuplications, but we were looking at what's called triputis, triple teachings. They say that, in fact, one of the great rishis, Pipalada is his name, he said that if you connect the three matras, and there's that word matra again from our particle, our wisdom particle, if you connect the three matras, then basically you realize the fourth state of your consciousness. Waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, you connect them, and then you realize Turiya, which is samadhi, or the highest state of consciousness. But if you leave these three unconnected, the three matras, then you wander, the soul wanders in the worlds aimlessly. It's a very powerful statement. So connecting the three matras of Om is A-U-M. And leaving them disconnected is just A, waking state, U, dreaming state, and M, deep sleep state. So you can see how if we are living in this human body and we consider our waking state to be different than our dreaming state, and our dreaming state to be different than our deep sleep state, then we're wandering about these three worlds without any connecting power, without any intelligent particle, without any stream of awareness that is able to cohese these, to integrate them. And so we'll never know the Shvara, that particle of the Om, which is disconnected, the little one-eyed smile, you see, is part of that Sanskrit word Om. So to connect these three, we have to think of, in terms of A, U, and M. It's not enough just to get the mantra Om and start repeating it. That'll help. But they say then it's better to understand what the A, U, and M means, what they signify. So we went through all of these significations of A, U, and M that I've placed here on this chart. A is Brahma, U is Vishnu, M is Shiva. A is the first world, the eminent world, U is the transcendent world, and M is the absolute world. A is waking, U is dreaming, M is deep sleep, and so forth. We went through all of those, and we saw that the word is pregnant with meaning then, and there's plenty to contemplate in it, rather than just to sit and chant it once, called Dirgha Pranava. You do one long recitation of Om, but what if you were to understand with your intelligent particle what the Om means as you chant it? Then all of a sudden you have this connecting power brought to bear in your meditation. Your meditation is attended by supreme intelligence. It visits you. It informs you. You don't have to wait for a vision or to go to sleep or to get a dream vision or something, but you're actually in charge of that by attending your awareness right now in each moment. And you know that your waking, dreaming, and deep sleep states are just phases of the same thing. That's what, when you say Om, you're pretty much saying waking, dreaming, and deep sleep are one consciousness. I'm not going anywhere, in other words. My witness consciousness from my intelligent particle is just looking at the change of my temporal consciousness from waking to dreaming to deep sleep. And if I can do that, I can also see how my temporal consciousness is going from birth to life to death. Because A is the birth of all things, U is the life or sustenance of all things, and M is the dissolution, the bringing to an end of all things. M closes it out. That's it. Until you chant it again. So what's before Om and what's after Om and what's in between the matras of AUM is this Turiya, is this non-dual Brahman. Before you begin to take the in-breath, which is A, and the held breath, which is U, and the expelled breath, which is M, you're in Brahman. You're thinking, I think I better chant Om so I can get enlightenment. But before you even took the in-breath, you were already that. You were Brahman, manifesting in this body and seeing Brahman manifested in everything else too. So it's a matter of immediacy. That's Shakti, that's divine wisdom, that's intelligent particle. It's immediate, it's spontaneous. Kriya Shakti. Faster than the fastest, slower than the slowest, higher than the higher, lower than the lowest, is how they put it in the Upanishads. It outstrips all that runs, because it's all pervasive. It's aparinama, it's transformationaless. It has no transformation in it. All transformations take place on the surface of it like waves on an ocean, but the depths are always one homogeneous mass of undivided bliss and consciousness, which is what you experience in deep sleep, but you don't wake up remembering it. So this natural tendency towards formlessness in deep sleep, if it's practiced in meditation with consciousness, removes the fear of death. They say, does anyone breathe in when they die? The last thing they do is exhale, right? Ha. Ha is the bija. H-A, ha. It means the destruction of everything. So you're giving everything up. You're letting everything go with that long out-breath that never ends. And you just merge into Brahman. All names and forms are soluble into Brahman, into the ocean of Brahman. Now, the sages say, and that's why I went back to this chart, because it's where we ended up last Sunday when we ran out of time, is that it's a matter of Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. This practice of Om with your, that is, if you want to say, how is my intelligent particle going to get charged up? As Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to say, charge up the chitta. He says, make your mind like a hot air balloon. It always wants to go up. But make sure you throw the sandbags out, too. Because it might have hot air in it, helium and so forth, but the sandbags are keeping it down. So throw out all the sandbags of impediments and obstacles and various weights that are there in your consciousness, and then naturally ascend. You're buoyant. You see. Swami Vivekananda used to talk about your seating posture, your asana. Ekasana is one posture, that's all you want. No matter how many other asanas you may do, this is the one you want. You want to be able to sit like this for a long, long time without shifting into any other posture. So Vivekananda would say, imagine there are hooks coming down out of the sky on invisible threads, and they're hooking to the bottom ribs of your rib cage, and they're attached up there to helium balloons that are keeping you up. Rib cage is up, so you never slump anymore. See, there's always this feeling of buoyancy, of going up. And your breath also feels that. And your mind feels that. That's elation. And that is the true meaning of levitation. You don't go against the laws of gravity and nature, you leave nature behind. You leave laws, relative laws behind, and you get the buoyancy of spirit. You get the insomnia of yoga. You're in an ever-awake state. And you never depart. Once having been there, you never depart again. That's your default zone. You won't go any lower. So your intelligent particle is very much involved in this process. It's called Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. First you must hear. That's what you're doing right now. What many of you have been doing for many years. You must hear. Shravana or Shruti. Shruti means to hear. It also means the revealed scriptures. So obviously the connection is, I must go hear the revealed scriptures from a luminary, from an illumined soul. Then once I hear that, Shravana, I must manana, roll it in my mind for a while. Here's where the intelligent particle has its main function, because the teachings can enter the ears of any ordinary mind and never make any impression there. But if your intelligent particle is intact, and you're attentive, and you're there for the duration, and you're committed, then these words will mean something to you. The ring of truth will be there. Om is the ring of truth, really. You're actually hearing it as a hum, like a million bumblebees, or the waves on an ocean. Constant background hum. It takes you over when you fall into sleep, and it goes away when you wake up. It comes and goes as you enter different states of your consciousness. So that hum is Chit Shakti. That's that sound of the word, of the goddess, of intelligence, the sound of intelligence. So roll it over in your mind, manana, nididhyasana. So here, the goddess in the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam says, after Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana, my devotee becomes fit for absorption in the spirit after understanding the meanings of the separate letters discovered in the seed mantra of Mahamaya. So, this is her. There's only one country in the world that has Mother Wisdom, that has Divine Mother as God. It's India. She's the mother of all religions. And in that religion of mother worship, Divine Mother worship, there is this profound teaching of vibrational intelligence, see, or the word. That is common to more religions, the idea of the word. So these separate letters, A, U, M, have to be contemplated. The seed, bijam. Bijam means a seed. So if you contemplate the letters of those, you take them apart, those are called matras. So now you have separate matras of the word. It's a triputi, A-U-M. And we know that it connects with all of those things, including our in-breath, our held breath, and our out-breath. Imagine doing pranayama, not for just healing the body, or making the nerves vibrate, or to getting better health, but knowing that it's the seed word of Mahamaya, Divine Mother of the Universe. You could have samadhi right away. You wouldn't have to, you could do 100,000 asanas and pranayams and never realize her. Or you could do one recitation of Om, knowing that it's connected to her, and immediately awaken your consciousness. And then there's the matter of keeping it awake. Yogic insomnia, as I said. So, in all of the world, there is one country that has mother as its ideal, India. And in all of those scriptures of the different religious traditions of the world, there are 3 mother scriptures. Chandi, Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, so forth. So basically, out of these 3 mother scriptures, you have her saying things like that. She also says here, after balancing the breath via pranayama and cognizing the differentiated states of the bija mantra and what they signify, meditate on the bija and mentally dissolve the gross body into the subtle body, dissolve the subtle body into the causal body, and then the causal body into the turiya state, symbolized by the mantra Hrim and the matra M. And before entering samadhi, focus upon me, the supreme deity, the luminous self-effulgent goddess who is one with Brahman. Shakti is one with Brahman, like fire in its power to burn, like water in its wetness, like the diamond in its luster. That is, form and formlessness are one. Form is emptiness and emptiness is form, if you want to go to the Diamond Sutra and read it there. So you can see here by the import of this sloka from the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, stated by Mahamaya herself, that dissolving power is very important. And it's not like you're going to go jump into a vat of acid and get the whole thing over in a few seconds. But you have to do this because the bodies will just be produced again, no matter what you do with them. So if you want to end the production of bodies in ignorance, which I would highly advise, try and be born in consciousness, not in ignorance, if you're going to be born at all. Because remember, your true nature is birthless, so it's really kind of a contradiction to say I'm born. So whatever the case may be, if you're going to do that, to be born in pure consciousness, then you're going to have to practice dissolving the gross body into the subtle body, and the subtle body into the causal body. So here's 3 different states of your consciousness, again, represented with A, U, and M. My gross body, made of 5 elements. My subtle body, made of the mind, everything which is inside me, my thought, and so forth. And my causal body, which is indeterminate. I don't know much about it. The scriptures don't even have much to say about it, because it's just formlessness. It's not supreme formlessness. It's called unmanifested prakriti. All of nature held in potential. The kingdoms of heaven within you will soon come out and externalize themselves. So what is here is also there, and what is there is also here. What is there is here, and what is here is also there. What is inside is outside, what is outside is inside. What you see in the waking state, you also see in the dreaming state. But it all goes away in the deep sleep state. Everything goes into formlessness. So if that's the natural course of things, and deep sleep also sees the end of suffering, and the end of the ego, and the end of the cell phone, and the end of all words, then maybe we should try and experience that while we're awake, while we're living, while we're meditating. So, last quote up here. One should go into the region where there is no speech or thing spoken. We can stop right there and just leave. We can leave now. End of class. One should go into that region where there is no speech or things spoken, absolutely free from dualities, called Akanda Satchidananda. There, with Om, meditate on the highest flame of consciousness. In this rare meditation, great beings have destroyed ignorance, realized their perfect nature, and established identity of the jiva with Brahman. Jiva is the embodied soul. So back to the idea of the apparently or individualized soul, its identity with Brahman. They've established that, because non-establishment of that, or keeping A, U, and M separate, keeping everything in a disparate sense, is the cause of ignorance. Varieties, variegations, diversity, that's all leading us out into fragmentation, away from yoga. So that's why nahi gyanena sudrishyam pavitramiha vidyate, wisdom is the destroyer of all ignorance. It's the highest destroyer. And also, when one makes one's eye single, one sits, see, in a looking at a candle in a windless place and watches the flame. So your consciousness has to become as still as that candle in a windless place. So these three quotes from the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, from the goddess herself, I wanted to elucidate a bit on today, because it was where we left off last time, and it's very much a part of the wisdom particle, especially in the sense of this dissolving power. Now, I also wanted to continue on with the completion of this chart on Om, on the word, the great cause, Omkara, because we didn't quite finish all of that either, but it gives us a good idea of the dissolving power and the projecting power. Remember, part of the cell wall, it's projecting. Intelligence can project. It can also withdraw, and it can also remain settled in a state of contentment. And so it has intelligent power in it, which it can use for any of these three ways. Again, another tripatti, isn't it? Projecting, sustaining, and withdrawing, if you want to put it that way. Now, when we looked at this, we didn't read the quotes. This was 2 weeks ago. We looked at this chart. Let's see what Sri Ramakrishna has to say about the bell. He says, "It has been revealed to me that there exists an ocean of consciousness that is without limit. From it comes all things of the relative plane. Therefore I give the illustration of the bell sound, tom. The strike of the bell is like the falling of a great weight into the ocean. Waves rise on all sides. Spiritually speaking, the relative rises from the absolute. The causal, subtle, and gross worlds and bodies appear out of the great cause. The waking, dreaming, and deep sleep phases rise out of Turiya. And just as millions of Brahmandas, those are worlds, rise in the ocean of the Chidakasha, they also merge in it again. The Leela merges into the Nitya." So, Sri Ramakrishna's unique perspective, and he used to say, this is my final conclusion on the matter, is that out of the absolute, the Nitya, comes the Leela, the play, or sport of consciousness. And then the sport of consciousness dissolves back into the Nitya, the absolute again. And that's what he's talking about. It all happens through the power of the word. This is why vibration and particles are key words to the world today, both in religion and theology and in science and in philosophy. They're key words. Flows of particles, we have to start looking at them on the more intelligent side of things, not on the more sentient side of things. Enough preoccupation with particles that change at a billionth of a second, and looking into objects and trying to find out what they're made of. You'll never know that because it's based on changing particles, what Christ called shifting sands. But if you knew the congealing power of the object is in your mind, then you'd know that all worlds of name and form have been projected and congealed by intelligence. And therefore, all of a sudden, you're onto a great clue, as we were saying. I said, that's why they say all knowledge is within you, or the kingdoms of heaven are within you. That all came out of that realization of the Word. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So when we look into the example of a bell, for instance, the power of striking is projection, no doubt. But the bell had the sound inherently in it before the striking took place, didn't it? So that's the inherent power of intelligence in everything, before there's any movement or even any thought of movement. Basically, there's another chart we can show here, the 4 stages of the word. The word first is para, supreme. para means absolute. And so there is a spaceless space, and of course words are going to defy us here, spaceless space that is not broken into any kind of conception yet. It's pure, vibrationless, undetectable by the ordinary mind and senses. It's something that your intelligent particle could intuit. That is, there's a certain intuition about it that people feel. It's part of your causal memory. It's the ocean you climbed out of. I'm not talking about as a salamander, but as an individualized soul. And it's also an ocean in which everything gets dissolved into again, everything that you conceive of and think of. That pragbara, that flow of intelligent particles into an ocean of consciousness, or into an ocean of ignorance, samsara pragbara. There's another flow of souls that are going always towards form, never knowing themselves as being formless. So that sound of the bell then has that inherent power in it of vibration. That's part of its property. And that's why we went through these teachings of the 7 worlds, 7 lokas. Burloka is the physical world. Bhuvar and Svarlokas are lower heavens and higher heavens. Maharloka is the realm of the sages and saints and seers. Janaloka, Taparloka is and Brahmaloka are the 7 lokas of existence, the kingdoms of heaven within you, in other words. Or my Father's mansion has many chambers. These are these inner worlds. And they're all vibrating with the power of the word, but as you ascend to these deeper, more profound worlds, the word becomes more and more evident, light becomes brighter and more penetrating, and the sound becomes more apparent. That is, almost until you dissolve into it, as our quote just said, you should dissolve the gross body into the subtle body, into the causal body. Basically, that's what you're doing in meditation. You're using different levels of particle to graduate yourself towards a higher state of consciousness. If you practice it here in meditation on earth, in the body, then you're well suited to do it at the time of death. If you don't practice it, then death takes you over and it's a shock or a surprise. So conscious birth would be, and a conscious death would be optimum to the bodhisattva, or to the jivan mukta, the being who wants to reach eternal life, realize immortality, and not fall into the ocean of ignorance again. Now, you can put it in terms of worlds, but you can also put it in terms of principles. They're called tattvas. The Mahabhutas are the 5 elements: air, earth, fire, water, and ether. The Karmendriyas are your 5 active senses: walking, excreting, procreating, and so forth. The Gyanendriyas are your 5 wisdom senses, cognitive senses: tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, and smelling. The Tanmatras are inexplicable to Western culture. They're subtle elements. There are gross elements out there, but there are also these subtle elements within you. So you become aware of them, you become master of the U state, of AUM. You can master your deep sleep state if you know the Tanmatras and understand them. But there are 5 of them again. So very missing link in our understanding in the West. The Manas is mind, Ahamkara is ego, Buddhi is intelligence, and Mahat is the great mind, or God's mind. So these are called 24 cosmic principles if you add them up. A gift from Lord Kapila of the Samkhya philosophy of India. And by studying those principles, and then one knows what one's graduating as one works oneself inside. I mean, think of it. You sit to meditate and you think, I'm not the body, and you say, well, I'm not the senses, so I'll turn them off. And right away, so you've gone beyond the physical world and the sensual world, right? You've actually shut down 3 sets of quintuplications right there in 5 seconds. You have to have faith that the mind is a marvelous projector. We're not talking about the brain here. The brain is, amazing enough, but the mind is something entirely different than the brain. The brain just has a connection to. So you have to have faith that the mind has this projecting power, like it's in the intelligent cell. It's part of the intelligent cell, and it also has a dissolving power in it. So it doesn't take 4,320,000,000 years to do this. See? That's the Mayic view. That's the view of time and space and causality from the insentient brain view. You see? But it's not the view of the seer of consciousness who knows that it isn't even taking a second to do that. Time isn't passing at all. Time is illusion. Time goes away in deep sleep, doesn't it? Time goes away in a coma. Time goes away at death. Time certainly goes away in samadhi or nirvana. So what is time after all? Time becomes malleable as these worlds, as you enter into these worlds, slows down in Burloka. In heaven world or in dream state, it takes on a whole dimension of its own. By the time it gets to Brahmaloka, the realm of Lord Brahma, then 4,320,000,000 years is like one of his days, and another 420,000,000 years is one of his nights. And so he's got many days and nights in his lifetime. You see how time just is elastic like that. Another way of understanding the illusoriness of time is how Lord Buddha describes it. As if you get out of the river of time, as he said, you get out on the river and sit on the banks, then pretty soon you know everything's cyclic, because the same thing will go by in the river every so often, and you'll know that it's all cyclic. He did it not just on a physical river, which is just a metaphor, but he did it by sitting under the Bo tree for 49 days and going into nirvana. Pretty soon he saw everything returns, and that's one of his great teachings. Everything returns. Now you could walk away from a conclusion like that, a siddhanta, and say, okay, I know everything returns, but you never got free of everything that returns. The whole purpose for coming to know that everything returns is that you want off the merry-go-round. If everything is constantly going in cycles, then you want to get out of the cycles. You're done. If you're not done yet, then yes, engage in more cycles if you want, hopefully in consciousness. But the ultimate state of consciousness that was proclaimed by Buddha and Christ and Krishna and Ramakrishna and others is to get into your formless nature, consciously. With thine eye single, made single, and know the truth. So that's why, whether you look at it in terms of worlds, the 7 worlds, or you look at it in terms of the 24 cosmic principles, this sound of Om is vibrating with an intelligent particle that is all-pervasive and stationary and static and still. That's why you go into stillness in order to contemplate it. But it has the power to project worlds of name and form and time and space, to sustain them and to withdraw them, all without changing its vibrational level. Just like a bell remains the same after it was struck, during when it was struck, and before it was struck. It's the same bell. It has all the inherent power in it that was there before the cycles of vibration that came out of it. So don't flummox your mind with 4,320,000,000 year cycles as if they were something. They're nothing. They're a blink of an eye when you're in deep sleep, when you're in death, or when you're disembodied. Certainly when you're in samadhi. Think more in terms of this eternal sound of Om, which is always going on, which he said so nicely. It has been revealed to me that there exists an ocean of consciousness that was without limit. If you just took that one sentence of the Paramahamsa alone, that would be enough to suffice, wouldn't it? Basically, you would feel that you are Brahman, and that's all that matters. I am pure consciousness. Aham Brahmasmi. I am that Brahman. And the word proves it to me again and again. As Krishna says it here then, is very much echoing the sentiments of the Divine Mother. Gates of the body closed, the mind confined in the heart, fixing the life force in the head, engaging in yoga, uttering Om, which is Brahman, and thinking of me, that one who departs the body attains to the supreme goal. So departs the body at the time of death, yes, but also departs the body at the time, every time he or she sits for meditation. So you can put it in terms of dissolving the gross body into the subtle body, which would mean your 5 elements into your 5 subtle elements, and your 5 senses into your 5 subtle senses. This is a way to do it tattva again, by wisdom principles. Or you can do it the way he's saying it here. Just sit, close the 9 gates of the body. You know what 9 I'm talking about, if you count them up. Confine the mind within the heart. That is, there's the best place for meditation, right there, the size of a thumb, see, in the chamber of the heart. And fix the life force in the head. That life force means prana. So that divine energy that's flowing through you, that prana, fix it in the head. So now you have a sort of a two-way concourse there, head and heart. They call it Meda Kendra. Meda means intelligence. It's one of our intelligent particles here. Meda, mental acuity. And Kendra means heart. So the combination of the mind with the heart. You see how complete it is. Some people are saying, oh, I just follow the path of the heart. Some people, no, I'm an intellectual. You see, what about just putting the two together? Is that going to be beautiful? If bhakti and jnanam, or devotion and wisdom, come together in one person, then you'll see a paramahamsa, or a bodhisattva, great compassionate soul, who not only can talk to you about love, but can explain the way out of your problems, can impress upon you the truth of reality. You want to have both of those. So, gates of the body closed, mind confined in the heart, fixing the life force in the head, engage in yoga. Yoga means union. I am one with Brahman. And utter Om, which is Brahman. In case that's not enough, think of me. It's called Ishvara. So what you have there is your body, which has become stilled, your open heart, your concentrated mind, your tendency, your greatest desire to engage in yoga, union with God, the sound of Om, and the highest form of God the human mind can conceive of in your mind's eye, Ishvara, Krishna. That's 6 things. If you can't get enlightenment with all of those going on, then you're worthless. I give up, you see. In one sentence, Krishna pretty much lays it out for you. That's in the Gita. That one who departs the body with these elements intact attains to me, attains to the highest level of consciousness. And can do it at will, can come in and out of the body at will. So it really doesn't matter anymore whether you're embodied or disembodied. That's a duality, because Atman can never be embodied and it can never be disembodied. It's the foundation upon which all bodies are taken and upon which they're given up. And that's what the ocean is telling you all the time. You can surf it, you can sail it, you can fish it. You're never getting to the meaning of the ocean until you look and see waves forming on its surface and dissolving, and the ocean never changing. Until you know the depths of the ocean, not its surface. So the ocean, the sun, the wind, the trees, everything is Brahman. That's easy to say, but when you know the meaning of the principles, when you know the philosophy, And when you have these great teachings and these great teachers in your heart, then it's going to be so much more meaningful for you. It's going to be fraught with meaning. It's going to vibrate with meaning. And that vibration of meaning is the intelligent particle, the jnana matra. It hums eternally. I'm quoting the Tantras right now. Nobody strikes that sound, the Tantras say. It's unstruck. Nobody initiates that sound. It hums eternally. That's right out of the Tantras. And Ramakrishna said it very nicely there. He also said, and I can paraphrase him here, when I first saw Om inside of me, I heard that sound, I saw all the worlds coming out of it, and then I saw them all dissolving back into him, but no time was passing. So everything is simultaneous in the wisdom particle. Everything is happening at all the time. All the time. See? The appearance of coming and staying and going, or being born or living or dying, those are all just passing phases, flashes, momentary, like a rainbow sheen on a pane of glass that I turn toward the sun and turn away and it's gone, there and gone. But what's there is that underlying foundation, the unstruck sound, Om. The unstruck sound, the unseen seer, the inactive agent, these are dichotomous expressions that we use to try and explain the inexplicable. Now, going back and finishing up some of these strings of teachings that we took in the last couple of weeks, there's the reference to Nitya and Lila that I was just talking about. The Nitya is the eternal, the Lila is its sport. So Ramakrishna says, it is my final opinion on the matter that everything starts in the Nitya, which means the absolute, comes into the relative, Lila, which means the sport of consciousness, and then goes back into the Nitya again and dissolves itself. So again, kind of three movements. See? But notice how he didn't ever say anything about the Maya in the quotient. He just said Nitya, Lila, Nitya, didn't he? Everything starts in the absolute, springs into play, and then goes back to the absolute. So where did this Maya come from? Everyone point a finger to themselves. You see. That's my doing. You see. It's the mind in ignorance. Maya is the mind in ignorance. The great Paramahamsas, the great beings, they don't ever fall into Maya. See. Vivekananda said, you are never in Maya. It is Maya that's in you. So get rid of it. So here's where that third element that's so important to the seers comes in, sadhana. We must do practice. If we all know who we were, or if we all know who we are, then there would be no need for practice. But since we don't, we need to practice to remove this false superimpositions and misconceptions from the mind so that the mind can see itself as it truly is. That's a pure mind, which we talked about last week. Then life from then on becomes one continuous, homogeneous flow of consciousness, of the jnana matra. It starts with formlessness, it goes into form and sports there and returns to formlessness. Birth, life, and death, creation, preservation, and destruction, all of those things don't take place in it anymore. It's in one state. It's in yoga, union. Everything is always in yoga. Maya just makes it look like it isn't. So there you see that idea of pralaya and prakriti going on all the time. And that pralaya means the dissolution of the sound of the bell. Everything will come back into the state that it left, the nitya. pralaya or mahapralaya, the dissolution of all worlds of name and form, all of these worlds, at the end of a very, very long cycle of time called Mahayuga. That is 4 yugas of time. Or a manvantara, huge, long series of time, much longer than science is talking about in the Big Bang Theory. And then the cycle begins again. So this constant cycles that are going on, Buddha said, as I was saying earlier under the bo tree, I want out of those cycles. I want free. And acting on those teachings, the father of yoga, some probably 600 years or so later, about 150 years after Christ, gave us the teaching of Kaivalya. It's basically when you get to dissolving everything back into this deep causal state that we're talking about, you've dissolved the subtle body into the causal body, and in the causal body you can see all of the knowledge that's within you in unmanifested form, potential form. At that place you have an opportunity to get beyond nature, because that's where nature, that's the hub of nature. We think the hub of nature is in the mother's womb, or in the 5 elements. But the hub of nature really is back in the unmanifested Prakriti, in the conception of the mind. If we think air, earth, fire, water, and ether at a very high level, and then it's going to manifest at a lower level, and we're going to create a body to get into it. But at a very high level of conception, unmanifested Prakriti, we know that's where it all began, in my own thought process. Or if you want to put it another way, in the beginning was the Word. Christ didn't want his religion based on origins. That was a mistake of the Church Fathers. He wanted it based on I and my Father are one. Origins mean beginning, middles, and ends. That's the work of the Word. So you should know the Word so you can get out of beginnings, middles, and ends. After you've lived enough stories, lived enough lifetimes, told the story to yourself over and over and over again about being whoever you are, or whoever you thought you were so many times, in so many different kinds of bodies, with so many different kinds of mothers and fathers and children and occupations, then pretty soon you're going to want to erase the story completely, burn the book. And that's what Buddha did under the bo tree. He burned the book of life. And 600 years later, Patanjali called that Kaivalya. It is the separation of the soul from nature. Why? Because the soul is sentient and nature is insentient. The two can't mix. They can only have a relationship. So this is not a popular idea in today's world. We love nature, we love form, we love the pleasures we get in nature. We forbear the sufferings we have in nature. We forbear death 1,000 times to be reborn again. But you must come to understand, if you want to be a Buddha, that this is a relationship with nature you're having over and over again, and pretty soon you're going to want a divorce. You're going to want to be yourself, which is formless, pure, nameless, timeless, deathless, indivisible. And in that regard then, you learn these great teachings from these great teachers, and you have samadhi, or you have nirvana, or you get kaivalya, separate yourself from the tendency to take birth anymore. And I can add to that, definitely the tendency to take birth in ignorance. If you want to come back in consciousness, go ahead. In full consciousness, then you'll live a divine life. That divine consciousness then is going to insist that you use your intelligent particle, and you get in touch with it, and use those streams of intelligent particles to create worlds of name and form and time and space free of karma and free of any attachments, so that at the end you can just rise up like that hot air balloon, just let go, move in and out like a breath, with the least amount of effort. In breath, held breath, out breath. So with that intelligent particle in hand, in tow, and with all these great instructions, then we can move towards this profound meditation and learn the art of conscious birth and also the art of formlessness, of rendering ourselves back to our original formless nature. Arupa. Now, after the break, we're going to go on with some other aspects of the intelligent particle that I have brought for you in the form of 2 other charts. And then next week we'll have the final class in Advaita Vedanta. So join us next Sunday at the same time, as I have 2 or 3 other charts I want to show you about the Upanishads and the teachings therein. So here we'll part for our break and take 10 or 15 minutes, and these charts will be shown to our live stream audience as we do. Thank you. Namaste. We are back with our live streaming audience from around the world. We've been looking at some of the stats in India and Europe and places. We're welcoming some of my students and other interested people who have heard about this new phenomena of SRV appearing on live streaming. So we're very happy to be able to present that and hope it will gain a following and audience so that Vedanta maybe won't have to stay just an underground river anymore. It can actually, rather than just nourish everything on the surface, could actually come forth and manifest itself. And basically, that's what Swami Vivekananda wanted it to bring it out of books and temples and manifest it into this very world and help all beings. And his divine teacher, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, was very much that way too. He very much was a universalist and a new man. In fact, there's even a song about Sri Ramakrishna that talks about a new man. It says, Esheche nutan manas dek bijodi ai chale. Esheche nutan manas dek bijodi ai chale. And basically it means a new man has come. If you want to see him, come along with me. He holds within his hand only one thing, a handbag, and inside of it there's only Viveka and Vairagya. If you open up the handbag and look inside, all that's there is Viveka Vairagya. Viveka is discrimination between the real and the unreal, and Vairagya is detachment from the unreal. So Vivekananda and his guru, Sri Ramakrishna, and certainly his wife, Sri Sharda Devi, who was my teacher's teacher, they all had that very universal approach to Vedanta and wanted it to come out more and be broadcast. So this is what we are seeing here, our opportunity to bring it to an English-speaking audience by an English-speaking guru who has been studying the Vedanta for lifetimes, I'm sure, but at least since I was in my teens, I began looking into this beautiful philosophy called Vedanta. And with its associates too, Tantra and Sankhya Yoga, Patanjali's Yoga, Buddhism, all of those are very much a part of the Indian darshanas. Darshana means a clear way to see. And in India, there are many, many beings and paths that are brought forth and generated by that very divine subcontinent, and all the many, many seers and saints that came forth too. So all of them, of course, were in possession of that secret of the stream of consciousness, or what we're talking about here is the jnana matra, the particle of intelligence. Even Islam has references to that kind of stream of consciousness. And basically, Adam and the Son of Knowledge was a book written by one of my teachers. So we know that there's this very deep inherent power, as we've been talking about in so many different ways on this illustration. So just imagine all of this and everything we've been talking about for 4 or 5 weeks, all packed tightly down inside, compacted in just one little cell of your own consciousness. And next time you talk about spiritual awakening, you'll know what's happening. Something is vibrating there, and something's coming up from the depths to the surface and beginning to show itself in the form of your own superlative intelligence, Chit Shakti, or Meda Kendra, or Vidya. Vidya is the word for knowledge in Vedanta. Also, Vedanta has that word in it, Veda. The scripture, the Vedas, come from the word vid, to know. So, with that said, and with a second half before us, which will obviously be shorter, I want to take you maybe a little deeper into the idea of particles, and do so with this chart on that's called Atmic, from atomic to atmic particles. Some of you may have seen it before, but it gives us a good idea of what we're speaking about. in terms of graduating particles, how consciousness actually refines itself. At the break, Professor Ray and I were talking about various things and that don't have questions that don't have answers, and how we're living in taking for granted many of these wonders around us, like a planet spinning through space, rotating and kept in place in a certain orbit, and all these beings on it with intelligence. If we looked at it from a standpoint like that, maybe some of this wisdom wouldn't seem so far-fetched to us when we first hear it, because it's really indigenous to our soul. All religion is indigenous to the soul, and there's no such thing as a foreign religion either. All of that is part of the universal path, and all has its place and its part to play in awakening us to our true nature, hopefully right here in this very body. And that will require that our mind be made pure and our senses be made pure, and that will require that we do some certain exercises. But along with the religion of traditional world cultures, there's also this idea of the philosophy that takes place. And so when we're having to speak with people that come from different walks of life, scientists, metaphysicians, spiritualists, and professionals, intellectuals, and so forth, we have to have different ways of presenting these things to them so that it will open up this atmosphere of conjecture, and wider than conjecture, even into entertaining some wider views that maybe didn't occur to us before, and that will open our consciousness to some very profound axioms. And that's pretty much the territory of Vedanta that you've walked into there. It's ancient and timeless. You can go way, way back, millennia before Christ, but nevertheless you see them talking about words like matra, which means a particle. So they knew about particles that were beyond the view of the eye to see, long before electron microscopes or quantum physics and all of that came into vogue. And they were looking at it more as an intelligent particle with the jnana chakshu, that's that wisdom eye that Krishna talks about in the Gita. With that opened, and thousands of years later, Christ would be to say, if thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. So with that kind of understanding, this inner periphery of consciousness opens up to us and reveals to us this plethora of wisdom principles. And that's sort of what is being said here on this chart when I say and coin a phrase from atomic to atmic particles. Actually, sort of tongue-in-cheek, because by the time you get to the Atman, there are no particles left. As we've often said, Sri Ramakrishna said, it's like dropping a sugar cube into a hot cup of tea. You know, it breaks into chunks first, and then it turns into granules, and finally it becomes entirely absorbed, and it's just one homogeneous mass of sweet liquid then, with no particles in it. So by the time that occurs, we go into what's called samadhi, or nirvana.
I'm sorry, can you pause? It's frozen for the viewers.
Oh, uh-huh. They're not, they were cut out suddenly?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll get to say welcome back then. I always wanted to say that.